Going, everyone? Bright and early, getting the day started here. Well, I'm very excited to be talking to you today about front-end decentralization broadly, and specifically the Armada network, which is a proposed solution. So some of you might be wondering, what is this? What does that mean? If you take away anything from today, remember this. Armada network is the only solution that exists in the market today that is fully decentralized, secure, and actually accessible and possible to use as an end consumer to decentralize the hosting of front end. So the next question, though, you might be wondering is, why am I here speaking? I don't work on Armada, I work on Audius, for those of you who know me. So this problem has been near and dear to our hearts at Audius for a while because the Audius network of nodes and node operators hosting content, metadata, everything else, has been decentralized from day one. The client level or the front end level to date has only been decentralized insofar as there are many community-run forks of the client, right? So there are different ways that you can access the same underlying network ecosystem, and that has some problems, which I'll get into later in this talk. But we spent months and months, and over the last year and a half, I think a lot of folks know I've been talking your ears off about this problem. We really haven't found like a realistic solution that would work with our level of scale as a product serving 6-7 million users every month, 250,000 artists, and over 1 million tracks. Just not. There's a level of usability and performance that was necessary to be able to provide a good experience to those folks. So I started advising this project, Armada. It was kind of an idea that, after talking about these set of issues with a lot of folks, started to emerge alongside of the general partnership. Dan's in the audience out here, and a number of others in the ecosystem came together and said, hey, there's a way, this is a solvable problem. It's just no one's actually, I think, set out to solve it with those three constraints in mind that I mentioned earlier. So I'm just an advisor to the project, but hopefully can be a good messenger today to share the good word about what they're doing, and hopefully some of you get excited about it. So to start with, I think it's worth talking about, like, how do people think about decentralized hosting today? How do people approach the question? And the unfortunate, honest answer, I think, in the space right now is that in many cases people just ignore it and host things in a fully centralized way. And you can see this if you go, use. I'm not going to name names, but go use various front end products out there, and it's pretty easy to figure out who's at what level here. Kind of the next level up from that, the next kind of level of decentralization that's realistic in today's world is this DNS record IPFS hosting thing. So you all also may see this where folks have a DNS name that refers to like the Cloudflare gateway or one of those gateways, and there's a manually set record on that name that refers to what IPFS hash is hosted there. Luckily, at least, though, I think the status quo today is that front ends are open source. They're expected to be open source. They need to be, and that has also led, in a lot of cases, to many community-run forks of these front ends for accessing products. So these methods are not great for a lot of reasons, right? And referring back to that kind of set of constraints that I mentioned earlier, that it needs to be secure, fast, fully decentralized. These different solutions fail on one of those three in most cases. The big questions that arise with these methods for hosting are, who decides what to host? How do you manage versioning when there are like 10 different front ends floating around that maybe someone forgets to update it after a year or two, and then the the product goes stale, but that URL still exists, who's actually pinning the content on IPFS, and how is that staying available over time? Who's paying for hosting in the decentralized context, or in the decentralized context, who's paying for IPFS pinning typically is the question. These products just aren't very performant today. I think that's what's pushed a lot of people towards just saying, well, screw it, we're going to just host our front end in a centralized way, like on GitHub pages or an S3 bucket or whatever, right? So, this is this is typical in our experience at Audius to see IPFS loads take 30, 40, 50 seconds to actually load the website. And if you are loading that frequently, you can get that down lower when caches are warmed up, but it's very unpredictable when and how and if these IPFS gateways choose to offload content from their caches. So I think it's a IPFS, and that public gateway ecosystem was just never designed to do what people are trying to do with it in this context, and predictably it doesn't work super well there, right? Because of that. So of course, if I talk to you about a problem, I'm going to talk to you about a solution to the problem, right? And that's what this Armada network product that this community is working on is seeking to solve. Is that set of 3 constraints? How can we satisfy them? And I'm going to unpack this more as we work through the rest of the material here. But at a super high level, Armada network is a ecosystem of nodes that host and serve static assets. In this case, a front-end product like a React app or something like that, securely and with very high availability and performance guarantees. So that's a lot of claims, but there's some real work here that backs all of this up, and you can actually go poke at this and play around with it in practice too. There are a few key innovations here. One of which is that versioning happens on chain with these decentralized network nodes that run off chain, actually picking up and hosting new versions accordingly. So you can now shift control of who decides what version of the front end is actually the correct version to, let's say, a DAO, for example, or any Ethereum address, right, that you might want to pick. Anyone can provide the payment to back that hosting, so long as the balance in the Armada network is kept topped up against the consumption that happens. The network will continue to host and serve and manage that content. Doesn't care who's paying for it. Same thing there. A DAO or other on-chain construct can now fund that and pay it up. And then the question, from there for a lot of folks becomes, well, how does this actually map to the real world, right? And how do end users actually access this network of decentralized nodes? So anyone can register a domain name and associate it in a secure manner with the site on Armada. It's actually possible for the folks who are doing that and making that linkage to do so trustlessly. So as users of one of these decentralized front ends, there's a level of assurance that you're actually getting what you think you are. So it's just kind of a breakdown of the actual structure. So there are these native nodes in the Armada network that are hosting that static content, that are hosting topology in our parlance is the metadata and other structures needed to operate the network. And then that domain node construct is what's actually doing like the DNS resolution. So from DNS node or DNS name to accessing the network. So as a user, when you're accessing Armada, there's this secure enclave construct that's running on your browser that's able to actually validate and make sure that what you're accessing is what you expect to access. And if there's a bad actor there that is trying to insert information into the workstream or man-in-the-middle attack in some fashion, that actually is detected and blocked at the user's browser level. So we're really excited about this collection of solutions and what that means for a project like Audius and for a number of others that are building around the Armada network and the ecosystem. So there are a number of folks in the ecosystem right now that are participating in different capacities. So folks like Audius Synthetics, Thales are planning to host interfaces on the network. The general partnership, like I mentioned earlier, has played an extremely instrumental role in the ecosystem, standing up the first version and bringing this out to the world. And folks like Horizons and Fenwick are supporting the ecosystem from other angles as well. So really excited about the level of excitement here. This is a really young project, right? But I think especially with what's happened in the space over the last year or so, definitely struck a nerve with a lot of the folks that chose to come along for the ride here. So really excited for all of that. The last question that might be on your mind here is, what comes next, right? What needs to happen from here for this to actually be a reality for the broader world beyond those list of partners that we mentioned earlier? And the testnet for Armada is already live. Everything I showed you in terms of the infrastructure and how this works, and I know I didn't get into enough detail there, unfortunately, today, given the time constraints for you all to really, truly understand how those things work. But there will be more materials forthcoming over the next 1 to 2 months. Testnet is live. It's already serving traffic for folks, not in a production context yet, but it is, it's end-to-end working. These assumptions have been validated that it is possible to solve for those 3 constraints that I mentioned at the beginning. Smart contract audits are kicking off in, I think, on the order of 4 to 6 weeks or so from now. Node operators are being onboarded as we speak as well. So a number of the folks I mentioned on the last slide will also be active participants at the node level in the network. Lots more project onboarding is still underway. So for all of the projects that have already publicly committed to using and engaging and working with Armada, you can probably guess there's a whole lot more that are starting to think about it. Ultimately, where all this goes, where all this culminates, is in the ultimate mainnet launch for the Armada network, which is soon TM, as is always the case in crypto. Timelines can be unpredictable, so the ecosystem of folks building here doesn't want to commit to a timeline quite yet. But it's pretty close, at least from what I know and what I understand thus far. So the last bits here, what should you do about it as someone who's hearing about this, learning about this? Well, if you run a project in the space or are working on a project in the space, reach out, get in touch. If you want to get the benefits that I mentioned there earlier and be able to service your community in a more effective and secure manner, the Armada network is potentially a great solution for you. So go on the website, check it out. Also, if you want to contribute to the project, if you want to actually work on the development side and whatnot, this is a community decentralized effort in the same way that the network itself is designed to be decentralized. So always looking for more people to come hang. Just reach out to me, grab me, or feel free to reach out on the website as well. Excited to see some of you there. And the last thing I'll leave you with, right? I think what's really exciting about this, or what gets me excited about this from the Audius perspective, is there's a lot of hard work and complexity in getting that serving layer to meet those constraints I mentioned, being secure, performant, fully decentralized. And once that's possible, there's a lot of other content that could be served in that way too, beyond just fully static content. So that's kind of the direction of future work that I think our community is excited about. And yeah, I think that's it. So thank you all so much for coming to listen, and hope you learned something new today.